Hey guys, this is Jaron. I hope you're having an awesome week and you're doing really well, you and your family. Speaking of your family, you're gonna wanna make sure you go get them right now. We're about to play a game. It's gonna be really fun. I know sometimes it like ties in with the lesson and all that kind of stuff. Today, it's just a fun game, but you're probably gonna need your parents, especially if you need some help reading. You're definitely gonna need your parents or an older sibling or something like that. So make sure you go get them, come back and watch this together. All right, you ready for the game? Here we go. It's called Movies Explained Badly, and it's just like it sounds. You're gonna see descriptions of a movie on screen, and you gotta figure out what movie it's talking about. Now, these are movies that you've probably seen. These are, Disney movies or like Star Wars or Marvel or something like that. Like, it's those types of movies that you've seen, and there's gonna be a description that it really does describe the movie, but it does it in like a horrible, hopefully kind of funny way, and you gotta figure out which one it's talking about, all right? You guys ready? All right, I hope you had fun with that. Like I said, that had nothing to do with the lesson. I just thought it would be fun. So I hope you enjoyed it. But for today, the story we're going to be talking about, it comes out of John chapter 9. And it's the story about when Jesus heals this blind man. Now, you may be thinking like, hey, didn't we talk about this before? Like, I remember we talked about Jesus healing a blind guy, and it's true, we did. This is actually a completely different story. This is a different guy. This is a different story, and because of that, there's different things that we can learn. So make sure you're tuned in, make sure you're locked in and paying attention, because there's some really cool stuff that comes out of this story today. We're going to be talking about this idea that God restores. And if you don't know what the word means, the word restore, it basically just means to fix something and make it the way that it was supposed to be, right? We see this a lot today. People like restoring old things. We have people that, they restore old cars back to like their earliest form, the classic form, or, like antique furniture that's kind of run down and worn down or broken or whatever. People like fixing those up, or even like entire houses. People like restoring those. But it's just this idea of like, there's this thing that used to be great, but it's not the way it's supposed to be anymore. Maybe it's kind of just worn down over time, or maybe it got broken, something happened. But I want to fix it and make it the way that it was supposed to be. That's restoring something. So we're going to be exploring this idea that God restores. Before we jump into the story today, there's a couple things you need to know. There's some terms, there's some words, there's some ideas that you're going to see in the story today, and I want to make sure you know what they mean. So real quick, before we jump in, I just want to go through these really quick with you and make sure you understand them, okay? So you're going to see this word Pharisee. You may have heard this word before. A Pharisee was like a religious leader back in biblical times. It was a religious leader. They oversaw the temple and all this kind of stuff. They were the religious teachers. They were religious leaders. But here's the thing. During this time, they were not really doing things the way they were supposed to be done. Like, they were supposed to be helping people connect with God and making sure things were done the right way and all this kind of stuff. But they had really kind of lost sight of that, and they got really caught up in rules and regulations and like just be getting really technical with stuff. And they also got kind of obsessed with power. They were more worried about being in charge and staying in charge than some other things. And so a lot of the Pharisees during this time had just really gotten off track from where they were supposed to be, all right? So you're going to see that idea, that you're going to see some Pharisees in the story today. You're going to see Sabbath. The Sabbath is a day of rest, is what it is. It was a Jewish tradition, and actually it still is today, where every seventh day, like on the seventh day of the week, it would be a day of rest where they weren't supposed to work, they weren't supposed to do anything else, they were just supposed to stop and rest. Right? So 6 days of working and doing everything you need to do to take care of you and your family, and then on day 7, you rested. And you weren't supposed to work, you weren't supposed to do anything, you were supposed to prep your meals the day before, all that kind of stuff. That was just a tradition that the Jewish people adhered to. And it went way back to creation, right? God created the world in 6 days, and on the seventh day, he rested. That's where the Sabbath came from. You'll see that in the story today. You'll see a term, rabbi. Rabbi is just basically saying teacher. That's all that means. It's a religious teacher. It was, if I call someone rabbi, that means I know that they're respected and I respect them, and they have things to teach me. There's things I can learn from them, right? It's a position of respect. That's when I refer to somebody as a rabbi, it means they're a teacher that I respect. And there's one other thing you're going to see today. It's this weird kind of idea. You're going to see this idea that there's a connection between sin and punishment and sickness or disease. Like, it's all kind of interconnected. That, like, you're going to see kind of how that plays out. There's this idea that those things are somehow connected. You're going to see that in the story today. All right, now let's get to the story. It's in John chapter 9, and we're going to be starting right in verse 1. In 9 verse 1, it says, "As Jesus was walking along, he saw a man who had been blind from birth. 'Rabbi,' his disciples asked him, 'why was this man born blind? Was it because of his own sins or his parents' sins?' 'It was not because of his sins or his parents' sins,' Jesus answered. 'This happened so the power of God could be seen in him.'" So right away, you see a couple things, right? So they're walking along, they call Jesus rabbi, he's a teacher. And they see this man that's blind, and he's been blind every day of his life. He's been blind since birth. And they immediately think, okay, whose fault is this? Is it his fault, or is it his parents' fault? Did he sin? Did he do something wrong? And so God is punishing him with blindness, or was it a sin that his parents did that now he's blind? So they just assume that's how it was. But the thing is, Jesus says, like, no, that's not how it works. Like, just because he's blind doesn't mean he did something wrong. He's blind so that the power of God could be revealed, right? So Jesus kind of blows that theory out of the water. That's not how it works. And so then picking up, he says in verse 6, it says, then he spit on the ground, made mud with his saliva, and spread the mud over the blind man's eyes. He told him, go wash yourself in the pool of Siloam. So the man went and washed and came back seeing. So it's weird, right? So Jesus, like, he picks up a handful of dirt and he spits in it, and he starts like working it together with his hands, and it works into like this mud. And so he's got a handful of mud, and then he smears it on the man's face, and it covers his eyes. And he says, go wash yourself in the pool of Siloam. It was this kind of this small little thing of water nearby. And so the guy goes off and makes his way there, and he starts rinsing his eyes off, getting all the mud off his face, and he starts to realize, like, he can see. Now think about this. He has never seen anything before, and now he can see. Can you imagine how he felt? Can you imagine how happy, how excited he was? Let's do this, all right? So I want you to talk as a family about a time in your life when you were the most excited, like when you were so over the top happy. Talk about a time when you were just couldn't be any happier, couldn't be more excited. Talk about that as a family. Now think about this. This man had never seen anything before. He has been blind since birth, and he sees for the first time. Can you imagine what that would have been like? I mean, he didn't know what anything looked like. He didn't know what a sunset looked like. He didn't know what his parents looked like. He didn't know what colors were. Like, how would you describe the color blue to someone that had never seen, had been blind? Like, there's no way to describe that. So he is looking around and he sees everything for the first time. He had to have been so excited. I mean, this was by far the best day of his life. And so his parents take him, and they take him to the Pharisees. And because the tradition, what you were supposed to do is if there was a miracle, if you had been healed or something like that, you were supposed to go like kind of present yourself to the Pharisees, and they had to like sign off on it and tell you like, yeah, it's good, and you don't have to do anything else. You're all set. Like they kind of like gave it a seal of approval. It was kind of a weird thing, but it's what they did, right? So his parents take him to the Pharisees. Now, what should have happened, what you would think would have happened is they would have gotten there and the Pharisees would have said like, oh my goodness, that's amazing. You can see, like, hey, I recognize you. I've seen you all the time. Like, you're always on the side of the road, and I know you, and you're telling me you can see right now? Oh my goodness, I'm so happy for you. Let's celebrate. Like, that's what should have happened. But that's not what happened. They were actually upset. They were mad. Because here's the thing. The day that Jesus healed him was the Sabbath. And you weren't supposed to do any work on the Sabbath. And the Pharisees considered like, oh, what he did, healing someone, that's work. And you picked up dirt and made mud out of it. That's like, you're doing work. That's work right now. And so they were upset. They were like, God's laws have been broken. And they were like demanding answers out of the man. And who did this? And the guy's like, I don't know. I was blind. And all I know is I can see now. And so they're trying to get answers and information out of him. And it doesn't work. And so they bring his parents in and they're kind of drilling them for information. And they don't really have an answer. And so they bring the guy back in and question him all over again. And, don't really get what they're looking for. And so they kick him out. They throw him out of the temple. Like they treat this guy horribly. On what should have been the best day of his life, they treat him terribly. Now, here's I think the coolest part of this story. Jesus hears about it. He hears what the Pharisees did. He hears how this man was treated. And he doesn't go to the Pharisees and like tell him off. He doesn't do that. He goes and he finds the man. And he connects with him and he says, hey, it's me. I'm the one that healed you. Because remember, he hadn't actually seen Jesus' face. He didn't know who it was. And so he's like, it's me. I'm the one that healed you. Oh, and by the way, I'm the Son of God. I'm the Messiah. I'm the one that you guys have been waiting for thousands of years. Like, it's me. And the guy was overjoyed and it says, he kneeled down and worshiped him right there. And they connected and they talked together. Now think about that. Not only did Jesus heal the man, but he was so concerned for him. He loved him so much that he actually came back around to find him after he heard what had happened in order to just sit down and talk with him. We're talking about this idea that God restores, that God fixes things. God makes things the way they're supposed to be. And it's not just physical stuff, right? It is that. He healed a blind man. And for you and I, like when stuff's going on and we're sick or maybe a family member is sick or we have something going on or having a hard time, we pray to God and we're like, God, please heal him. Please heal her. Please take care of it. Make it better, right? We want God to restore, to fix things. And there's times that he does that. But that's not all he's concerned with. That's not the only thing that's important. God restores everything, not just physical bodies. You see, you and I were meant to be with God. We were created, we were designed to be with God, to have a relationship with God, to do life with God, right? That's the Garden of Eden. That's what it was for. Like people and God, like hanging out together all the time, just doing life together. That's how you and I were meant to live. That's how the world was supposed to be. And then sin broke it. It broke everything. It broke our relationship with God. It kind of broke the world, and so things aren't the way they're supposed to be. But God restores. And not just the physical stuff. God is at work right now restoring things. He's working right now to restore you, to invite you deeper into a relationship with him and doing life with him. And he is working in the world right now to make things more like they're supposed to be. That's such good news because I know there's a lot of like negative stuff out there, right? There's people that are just angry all the time and there's just negative stuff. And we look around, we look at the world, and so often we look at it and go like, that's not how it's supposed to be. Well, good news. God restores. God right now is at work in your life, in the life of people around you, in the world around you. He is at work right now restoring things. He is working in us and through us to make the world, to make our lives, to make us like they were supposed to be. Let's pray together. God, thank you. Thank you that you restore things. God, we look at the world and there's things that don't go our way. There's things that happen that we wish wouldn't. There's things that we don't understand, and just, there's bad things that happen, and there's people that are hurting. God, there's a lot that we could look at and be just sad. But God, we know that you are restoring things, that you are fixing things. You are making things the way that they're supposed to be, the way you created the world to be. God, thank you. Thank you for restoring us, for that just ongoing process of making us more like the way we were meant to be. And God, thank you for inviting us to being a part of it. God, you actually use us to make the world better, to make the world more like it was supposed to be. That's really cool. God, we can't thank you enough for getting to be a part of that. Help us to do that. Help us to see that you're at work and to join you in what you're doing. We love you so much, God. It's in your son's name. Amen. All right, guys, I'll see you soon. I love you. Take care.